Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of the AlwayzGamezTV Show, and this is actually the second recording of the show because hopefully the audio is now working, and I've remembered to press record.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, fingers crossed. Can't promise anything though. As I said, this is episode 3, and I'm joined by Mark Stevens once again, sir. Again. I like to say this is only the second time recording. We could actually, for all everybody could know, this could be the 4th or 5th time of recording, but we'll just say it's second time to make it sound more professional.
The magic of editing.
Yes. I mean, this is the first time we've recorded this show. So, how are you on this wonderful Thursday evening?
I'm good, thanks, man. How are things going?
I'm alright. I'm feeling a little bit ropey. I decided to do a bit of a heavy sesh last night of not drinking but actual video gaming. I started playing Alien Isolation on the PlayStation 4 about 8:30, and then I went on through till about the early hours, around about 4 till 4:30 in the morning.
Oof,
Non-stop.
Oh, wow.
Actually, thinking about it, I didn't actually eat in that time period either. So I was quite shocked. That was, big. I haven't had a session like that for a long time, and I just kept on... with the checkpoints, there is no checkpoints in Alien Isolation. It's like the old school Resident Evil. You have to save at a typewriter, but this is where you save in certain sections. You have to get to that save point and then save it manually. And every time I got to a save one, I was like, I just want to go a little bit further and just experience what's coming up next. So then when I then reload the game again, I'll know what to expect, and then I don't need to worry about anything. But then I'd play really well, and I'd manage my resources really well, and I wouldn't shoot anyone, or I wouldn't use hardly anything, or using it, I wouldn't get hurt. So then I'd go, well, I've got so far now, I might as well just keep going to the next save point. And that was a continuous process over many hours until the point where I was just like, I'm sure I went to the toilet at one point. I'm sure I could hear the aliens still. I was just like.
Oh. I don't remember having these vents in my bathroom.
Oh, seriously, it was just such a session. It was good fun, but the gaming hangover is a real thing. I've decided it is a true, real feeling of just waking up going, it feels just like a hangover. It really is. I was just like dying for coffee this morning. But anyway, I'm doing all right. I hope you've got lots of energy anyway. But how are you doing?
I'm all right, Tom, man. I'm just steady away. No gaming hangover for me. Barely getting the odd hour here and there on games recently, but there's too many games. So every time I start one, I go, that's enough of that. Put you to the side. Now let's try Evil Within. Let's put that on the shelf now. Let's play Bayonetta 2. Put that on the side. Go to work. It's
truly the time of the year to dabble. It's like we would just get bombarded left, right, and centre with AAA games. I think Call of Duty's out next Tuesday.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and we've had Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor with Alien Isolation. We've had Evil Within. Probably a billion other games that I can't even think of right now. And there's only so many you can buy, but then you want to buy them all. And then when you do get them all, they're all released in about a week of each other. And like you say, you just play a little bit, and then you go, oh, well, that's really good. Oh, now I've just unwrap this one. Got this one, and then I put that one in, and then you go, oh, that's really good. Right, I'll just try the other one that came. I did that very much with Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Alien Isolation because they were literally in a week of each other. And they were the two games that I have been wanting to play so much this last year. And that is one of the reasons why the content on the channel actually has dropped by a dramatic amount, because I've just played so much of these games that it has taken up pretty much everything in my life at this present moment. So you'd say you've been playing a little bit of Evil Within. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's interesting because you know me, controversial. I like to follow the game reviews and just see what I can do different.
You gave it an 8. Let's see.
yeah, exactly. Let's cut that in half at least. It's actually quite good. I think I follow most of the reviews about the same kind of score I'd give it so far. I'm only about 2 hours in, dead early on. But for what I was expecting it to be, it's very much not what I thought when it first came out, because really nice in places, really awful in others. So it's not consistent when you're playing it so far, because it reminds me a lot of Resident Evil. And I'm like, okay, feeling quite good. But then it reminds me more of like a mixture between Silent Hill and kind of like Amnesia a bit, where it's more atmosphere and just kind of like lurking around. You're like a bit more sneaky, and I'm like, okay, I can get into this. This seems quite good. Like everyone saw the tech demo where there's like the crazy like butcher guy or something. You're like sneaking behind him. That's it. And it's just that whole crazy thing where you go, oh, I'm quite on edge now, and then he'll come chasing you, and you'll hide in a cupboard, and you'll try and sneak past him. But it's annoying because then after that section, it'll go into a bit more of an action kind of mode, and it's like, okay, you've got a gun now, but 5 bullets, and it takes at least 3 to kill anything. And you're like, okay, well, guns are pretty pointless then. But then it'll throw absolutely tons of enemies in a level, and there's no real way, from what I've seen so far, of properly getting past them without sneaking up and taking them out. So it feels like more like Metal Gear Solid, but you get into the atmosphere, you can barely see anything. It's very like dark, very like letterbox view, which they just recently did an update for to get rid of the letterbox for PC.
Oh, I got to admit, because I was going to ask you about that, because it was the old cinema scope sort of look to it. I didn't realise that they'd actually even done an update to remove that.
Literally, I think it's just happened. I can't quote exactly when it was, because I just put my Steam on today and I'd not been on it recently. Mm-hmm. And there's an update for it, but it's another gig and a half. But when I read what the notes say it is...
To remove the screen from the... basically to fill your monitor.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where all the other gig have come from. They're going, oh, we need some more textures, guys. These buildings don't actually have floors.
We hadn't just stretched him out, like, so he's really tall now.
Yeah, well, this is what it said on like the notes for it, that they've done in the patch, remove the like the letterbox kind of view, change the cap from 30 frames a second so you can cap it at 60, which I was like, oh yes, that's better. because like same as you, I got Alien Isolation, played that, Evil Within comes out like maybe a week, maybe a few days later, put it straight in, downloaded it, off I went, and then I was like thinking, hang on, why does this feel so different? And then I thought, oh, it's the frames, because even though your PC is like absolutely churning it out, it's just capped. So no matter how good your PC is, it's going, no, you're not better than the console. We're all the same. We're all friends here.
We're all on the equal playing field. It wasn't developed by Ubisoft by any chance. Or
no,
was it in
League? Well, yeah. Oh.
Well, that's a totally different story. Before we get anyway, before we go any further, actually, we were going to do a traditional news show where we're going to be chatting about what's going to be happening in the news and everything like that. We're going to have Luke with us, who hasn't actually appeared on the vidcast yet. He was on the podcast, but unfortunately he's a bit tied up with a few things. And I thought, well, we'll tell you what, let's push all the news stories to hopefully next week or maybe the week after, and then we'll bring a Luke into it as well and see, obviously what his opinions are, especially with I really want to chat about the 1080p and 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second that Ubisoft seem to be having a few, shall we say, issues with at this present moment. And I want to be able to bring like Luke and see, because Luke doesn't, I would say, play as many games as possibly me and you do, Mark. So I'd like to see his opinion on how he approaches a video game and whether or not it actually matters to him. So we're going to leave that until the next show and bring it. So this show is going to literally just be horror games and our experiences within it, which mine's pretty much Alien Isolation, like I said, because I hung over from it, and yourself with... Go on, Tom. The other night you contacted me and through Twitter, and you said, get Deadly Premonition. It was on sale on Steam for, I think it was like $1.99 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, got you, Mark. Don't worry, I'll get it. I'll get it. Played it for only about 20 minutes, admittedly. So this is not obviously I haven't really got anything to be able to talk about this game, but it's a bit different. You obviously you've played it. Talk me through it and the premise of it, and then I'll say what I've experienced. Go for it.
I got Deadly Premonition when it first came out on the Xbox 360 a while ago now, and the basis of my purchase was because I follow Jim Sterling quite a bit, who does like a lot of reviews and things for The Escapist now, and he used to do them for Destructoid. And this game, he was on his radar for a bit, and he kept talking about it in like showing videos which were a bit odd, very Twin Peaks and things like this. And then the review came out, everyone slated it generally. Like they gave it, like 4s, 5s. Said, "Oh, this looks like a PS2 game. What's it doing on an Xbox 360?" Jim gave it 10 out of 10. And when I saw it to pre-order on Amazon, it was 15 quid, brand new, before it even came out, and it had on the box, big Destructoid sticker, 10 out of 10, and I'm like, good on you, I'll have that. And I got this game, and I thought, oh, yeah, let's get it in then. And it does look a bit PS2-ish, but it's strange, yet compelling, and in some ways does more than what a lot of AAA games now do in just simple ways. The gist of it is that you play kind of a detective cop kind of character who, for some reason, I've not played it in a long time, so I've actually just got it myself on PC now for the HD remake, the director's cut, I think they called it. And he's sent on like a case. I was going to say mission, then I thought it was a bit extreme. Solid Snake, the detective.
Colonel,
and he goes,
I need to investigate this. Stop eating the donuts.
And he goes to this town, and it's very odd. Like, the people are a bit weird. The voice acting seems off in places, and he starts talking to himself a lot, but no one else seems to like pick up on it. It's a bit like in Family Guy where Stewie will say something, but no one will really kind of pick up that he said it. It's like, did anyone actually hear him? Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. I don't really know where that's going. And it just seems to be like almost taking the piss out of itself, but then be dead serious at the same time, because you'll drive around this town, and it's the only game I've played in a long time which you can indicate in your car. So you can indicate to turn, you can put your wipers on, your lights on. It's very much like day and night passes in the town.
It's certainly a feature I think GTA should really... because everybody tries to drive safe in GTA. I just want to say, like, and when you want to indicate to go left, you can't. It all goes wrong. I'm not going.
Yeah. That's the version I'm waiting for. I don't want Grand Theft. I want Grand Do As You're Told. Get your signal maneuver, mirror all this business.
Grand Theft, yeah, behavior simulator. Like
Grand Behavior Simulator. Oh, good bit of GPS.
It's named here first, by the way.
That is truly a British game, if anything. Like the queuing game.
It would just be, and we'd all be really like polite to each other. Oh, get off the road! Like, and then road rage is like, oh, F you! But we'd still behave ourselves. Like,
of course, you still adhere to all the rules.
Of course, we might complain about them, but
well, yeah.
So when I started playing Deadly Premonition, it's very obviously very Oriental feel to it, sort of style of like. Of that sort of made to make it look like a Western game, but made over. Is it made in Japan?
It is Japanese, yes.
You can sort of see that that how it's been developed to be like that very much, but then aimed to be set in America, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it starts off like no spoilers really, because this is right at the beginning. That there's two twins walking through a forest, followed by an elderly gentleman, and they come across a woman who has been shackled to a tree and had her intestines possibly removed, because they're not visible, with a slice through her torso. The kids don't seem overly bothered by this situation, and the old man just seems a little bit surprised that, oh, well, that's a bit, yeah. And just stare at it, and then and then obviously it goes pans around obviously a local town where the girl is from, and you see a lot of people crying, possibly due to her death, maybe. I'm not too sure. And then it changes to another situation where there's this young girl who then gets told a story by an old man, and yeah, it's certainly different.
Yeah. Do you remember what the story was about that she gets told?
Not really, no.
Is it about a killer?
He said it was going to be something scary.
Okay.
And so I don't think he finished the story. I didn't get that far.
Oh, right.
I have to admit, I didn't get that far. Yeah, it's a very individual sort of style of game. I don't even really know what to even sort of relate it to now.
When you get into the main like missions in the game, if that's what you can call them, if anything like that, it's very much based on investigation and action, similar to LA Noire, Grand Theft Auto, that kind of get in your car, drive somewhere, talk to someone, and then there are, kind of spoiler, but it's so early on that, it's not really. There's these kind of like undead zombie kind of creatures that are after you, and you'll have to kill them. But you go to a bit of like almost a Silent Hill kind of version of whatever place you're investigating, and you'll have to kill all these things, and then it'll go back to like the normal like setting again. But there's all these different killers, all these different murders taking place. That I think the guy's called the Raincoat Killer, who you're trying to catch, and you're trying to like piece it all together. But it's set in such like a good episodic kind of way that each mission does build up. The more people you meet, the more like places in the town you go to. But it's the fact that you can buy your different clothes of things, but different to like GTA, where that's very much like, customize your character. You do start feeling a bit more like you're living your life. You've got your day and your night. I think you have to eat and drink. You can shave, and if you don't shave, you see your stubble growing. And it's got these like little touches to it, but it does look like a PS2 game, which is then like the downside of it.
So a lot of the mechanics of it are actually almost quite quite advanced, actually. If you say like things like that, very very RPG sort of. One the game actually did sort of remind me, especially the look, was actually Shinobi. Was it Shinobi? On Dreamcast. Have I said that right?
Oh, Shenmue.
Shenmue, sorry. Yeah, that sort of style and the look of it, I started to feel that a lot when I was playing it, especially with a lot of the voice acting and things like that. Obviously, this is set after the release of Shenmue, so...
It's not the best compliment to say your voice acting's like Shenmue, though, is it? Have you seen any sailors around here?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was very much like that. But you could almost... I got that very much that vibe from it, and... yeah, I think I'm going to have to maybe put a few more hours, well, even a few more minutes probably, into this game, and sort of see what you... Yeah, I got to a bit, I was a bit like, what is this that Mark suggested? But I do think it probably just needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, I put this to you now, like, my challenge is for you, play an hour, get it on the channel. I think the people want to see what you're on about. I don't think anyone's bought this game, and they should. It's worth it.
I will do a let's play of it then. I'll do an episode of running me through it and my reactions.
Yeah, because it's so worth it. I mean, it's got to be seen to believe.
Right.
I mean, I played it, and I had a friend who came around to see me one day, and I already was playing it, and he just kind of sat with me for a bit, and he was like, what are you playing? This is so strange. But after 10 minutes, he were hooked. He were like, I bet he did it. Oh, let's go over there. Are we going to go back and check this guy out later? He were on it. He couldn't wait to see what was happening next, because it's just that whole, it's so serious, but you want to laugh at it because it's just so kind of shit at the same time.
Oh dear, but no, I've got to admit that one's certainly there is a Steam Halloween sale up at this present moment. I haven't actually looked at it. You've just actually mentioned it just before we came on the show. Is there anything actually on there which is what you would suggest probably people to grab?
Well,
especially for Halloween. It's
a weird one because it's quite a good Halloween sale so far, but my problem is that we do own a lot of these games already. Like, none of the new big ones are much cheaper from what I've seen so far. It's going on from 30th of October, so today, till the 3rd of November. So there's a good weekend chance to have a look at these. But a lot of them are standard kind of sale games. You've got Left 4 Dead 2 for about £3. You've got Slender on there. We've got a lot of mainstream games that I wouldn't really consider Halloween. Like, we've got Devil May Cry, we've got Fallout, BioShock. It's a bit of an odd choice, really. But there are some good horror games.
There's actually one game which I've never played was BioShock. I've got them all, and I've never played them.
BioShock.
I know there's so. I know. I just want to sort of like, you never played it. But it's a lot of people I do see in a lot of forums they say, is it scary? But it's quite dark, isn't it? And it's quite. I guess it's sort of a lot of the messages it's trying to put across is quite.
Yeah, it's
a bit more serious, and I guess it is a little bit. I'm only going by watching videos and seeing screenshots. It does look quite spooky.
Oh, that was one of the first games that I just purchased a surround system. So before I got my surround headset and stuff, this was back when I played with all my 5 speakers around me on my PlayStation and my Xbox, and it was one of the first really good surround games I played on. And the idea, like, not to go too much into Bioshock, is that this place you're in used to be thriving. It used to be lovely. Everyone was like having their own kind of like life in this area, and they all went a bit mental after a while. It all kind of had a crash. Everything's bad now, and you end up in there and you can't get out without trying to like follow the story to like get out of this place. And these people are all a bit mental now, but they've all like taken like a different kind of madness. So there's like main characters that are like really good in their character. That, I mean, one person, without spoiling anything, is like he was a plastic surgeon, but after a while he was doing the same thing for everyone. He started questioning what beauty was, and he started wanting to be the Picasso of beauty. So he's starting to like really like mess people up because he wants to, like, that's what he's doing. And when you're in like these different areas, you'll hear these like nut jobs like walking around like humming to themselves. Like one woman in particular stood with this pram going, "Don't cry, baby, it's okay." And when she hears you sneaking up on you, she runs you like a rear wrench. And when you kill her, because you have to like kill her, she's like an enemy, you walk up to the pram. The pram's just got a gun in it. And it's just like, that's quite weird. But it's the sound, like the atmosphere is brilliant. Like Alien Isolation does that really well with like the doors closing behind you and stuff, and just the general rattle. But it's that where these are real like noises.
A lot of games like that, I think, again, like speaking with Alien Isolation, it's very much the atmosphere, and in many cases, and a lot of the time, there's probably not actually anything going on. You're just sort of traveling, you're going through certain sections, just experience them, but with the sound, the lighting, that gives such an atmosphere that can give you that air of spookiness. And like, for example, if you ever watch a horror film and if you ever turn the music down or turn the volume down, it becomes instantly not scary. Yes. Because all the elements come into it. And I think with Alien Isolation is, a lot of the time when I was playing it, when I look back, you don't actually see, especially in the initial stages of the game, you don't see much of the alien.
No.
But you hear stuff, and there's noises, and this, that, and you end up being your worst enemy because you're the one who's basically scaring the crap out of yourself. Because you might hear a vent open up, and I was like, whatever, it could be in that. It's not, because we haven't even got to that bit yet. But my whole mind was thinking that this alien was already hunting me as soon as the moment as I stepped onto this like section of the ship. And because it was an alien game, the story hadn't even introduced the alien at this point, and I was already terrified. But it's, I think, especially with horror games, and it seems to be that when Resident, like for example, the Resident Evil games came out, it was very atmospheric, and then they went from Resident Evil 3, and then went to Resident Evil 4, which started to have a little bit of a different feel to it. It was still a little spooky, but it was more action based, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then we went from Resident Evil 4 to Resident Evil 5 and 6, which was so far the other way that it couldn't even be called horror games anymore. And I think that's, when I'm going with this, I'm just waffling now. It's kind of like a lot of games, horror games in the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, seem to have lost their element of horror. But in the last, then, in this, like I say, with the release of Evil Within and Alien Isolation and Outlast as well, being a major factor to this, and Slender with an indie game as that, it has created a way of less visuals but more sound. Yeah. And by doing so, creates so much more horror, because your imagination then takes over and fills the gaps in between, which the game doesn't always show you. And
well,
look, you go.
Sorry,
Go for you. Go.
I was going to say that I think that's something that's been really interesting recently. Like, you raise a good point there on Alien Isolation, Evil Within, Outlast, Slender being like the big hitters. I think like in the past few years, like only really, really recently, PC seems to have had a really good like output of horror games. Like, I think a lot of big companies didn't want to touch horror anymore because they were like, oh, horror doesn't sell very well, because they were looking at Resident Evil 5 and saying, oh, what a flop, it only sold 10 million hits or whatever like this and stuff. But it's because, to your point there, you're right, it was just action horror. So you weren't scared like, oh, I'm so on edge of my seat. You were scared like, oh god, there's so many zombies there and a chainsaw guy, I need to really kill all these. You were never like in peril. You were just like thinking, I need to look after my health bar and this and that. You know, he was like into it. But games like the Penumbra series, which were the guys that then later on did Amnesia and Amnesia Machine for Pigs, we're doing something completely different where it was all just, you had no weapon, so the game was first person, atmospheric. You read a lot in the game, like you got invested into it, and sound did play a big factor. Lighting played a lot of factor. I mean, the Amnesia games are well known for the kind of the madness thing. So if you were in the dark too long, your character would start seeing things because he was getting scared of being in the dark. And they play well on like the heartbeat noise. But I think since the first big hitter, I think from like mainstream games was Dead Space, did a really good job of kind of bringing back the horror, because they worked on their like sound engine to do this thing where it was like dynamic, so it would play certain different volumes and snippets of the audio tracks and things to kind of make you be on edge. And that whole vacuum sound in space and stuff, they did a really good job on. Like sometimes monsters wouldn't make a noise when they were behind you, so when you turned the camera, the music and things would only start playing when you saw them. And so I thought that was really good of like getting people back into the idea of action games can be scary but still have, you know, something to play rather than going completely action or completely horror. It was a nice kind of like hybrid. But I think PC's been doing it for a while. Like indie developers in general have been doing quite a few things with horror.
I think again, it's good with the indie. I think because in some ways I guess I can understand why big publishers understand like they are worried about the profit. And they're worried about whether or not they can earn money back on their game. So they're investing into small development teams to be able to say, well, we want you to create this sort of style of game. And they may be wanting to do a horror, but say, well, no, horror doesn't sell anymore. Like you say, we want to do this and do that and do that. But with the indie game, companies being able to say, well, they want to create this game. They've got no real publisher behind them to say, no, that doesn't sell. They're doing it purely out of passion and are willing to make these risks that, if it doesn't always pay off, well, you know, it's just one of those sort of risks they are willing to take because they don't have shareholders, they don't have investors. It's purely them, and they're doing it purely out of love. And it's just nice that, well, I think, to be honest, how indie games have changed the industry since, well, I guess indie games have been around for a while, but I think really Minecraft was, I'd say, probably one that really sort of brought it to the forefront. And it just shows like how these little games have made such a difference to different genres, which a lot of people thought were dead. Oh, yeah. And I think it's just made. I think it's fantastic that, if you look at Alien Isolation again, Outlast, you know, was that classed as an indie game initially?
That was only a small development team.
Yeah, and that looks like a AAA game, and the way it's represented, it's a fantastic game, and that heavily influenced Sega to create Alien Isolation. And that's what you want. And that's obviously, thank God for them to create Outlast, because if they hadn't made that, I doubt Alien Isolation probably would have got the funding to be made. No. And I think all we need now is basically to Capcom to take notice, and then basically go, well, let's get Resident Evil, fair enough, we'll still keep creating the action games, but let's start going back down the survival horror as well.
Well, saying that with Capcom, actually, did you get a chance to play Resident Evil Revelations at all?
I've got it on PlayStation 3, but I never actually got around to playing it.
Okay, because that's the one that they originally did for the 3DS, where it wasn't like a side story or a spin-off. It's kind of like a smaller Resident Evil game, so it's canonical into the series, but it follows some of the main characters like on a ship mainly, so it felt more like the older games, but there were some really good horror elements in that felt like it was more like the original parts of Resident Evil 4 where you were a bit scared and stuff, but it still had the camera behind the shoulder view with, like, you know, your laser like pointed gun to get the good shots and things. And then they ported it to all the consoles and PC and stuff. They're working on the sequel at the moment, and it feels more to me like proper Resident Evil. Like, a lot of reviews came out for it, said, do you know what, this is what Resident Evil should be. And I think they have taken notice now that they're going, yeah, do you know what, I think people are kind of catching on now that if we do another Wesker teleporting game and stuff like that, people are going to catch on that maybe Chris shouldn't be punching a boulder. It's not quite the same thing we started off with, a dog jumping through a window.
Yep. It is. I think I guess, unfortunately, when it comes down to it, it is money. And obviously the publishers want to make, well, money. And a lot of the bigwigs see, well, action games are very popular, so we'll follow that path. And it's just a shame that in time that we've lost certain what we would call our classic horror games. But hopefully, like say in time, they may start coming back, and with like Resident Evil, Resident Evil Revelations 2, hopefully we'll see good sales on that. And if that is the case, they may end up investing more time into creating some original stories in the Resident Evil series based on survival horror.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, yeah.
You were more of a... Do you play more Silent Hill?
Oh, yeah, I love a bit of Silent Hill.
See, I was more Resident Evil. I never played Silent Hill.
You've never played Silent Hill?
I played it like a little bit, like, you know, like a few minutes here and there, but not really, I would say, invested a huge amount of time in it.
Okay.
But I was more like, I'm Resident Evil camp. I'm in that camp. We want at least some form, like, see, Silent Hill was always a bit sort of, I would say, like ghosts and ghouls. Okay. That always what came across to me. I don't know the story, admittedly, but that's always what came across. Resident Evil I always think it was grounded in more realism, in a sense, especially in like Resident Evil 1 and 2, where it was either of a virus and it would mutate you and all that sort of thing. Whereas what I played of Silent Hill, it was more mystical and more like demons and things like that.
That's a good shout, actually. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with it. Really, that to me, I always saw it as the opposite reason, though, because I've played all the series on both camps, because a lot of them more like recent than not. Because when I was young and I tried Silent Hill, I started with Silent Hill. I tried one for like an hour, and I was too young. I struggled with it. I didn't really get what was going on, so I borrowed it off my friend, and I was like, I don't really get this. I keep trying to go through this fog, and all the roads are not connected anywhere. So I didn't really get scared. I just got a bit like lost and thought, I don't get it. And I played Metal Gear Solid instead. I was like, I don't get this, but it's awesome.
Good man.
But then when I got my PS2, my same...
microphone. So I keep talking, I'm just going to readjust my microphone. It's just falling on the floor.
Oh, no worries, it happens.
Don't worry, it's all okay. We're doing it live.
Spooky microphone.
We'll put it there. I'll put it here now, and slowly as the show goes on, you'll slowly see it getting lower.
Just sinking.
Keep talking. You're all right.
And then my cousin who lent me Silent Hill 1, when I got my PS2, he also lent me Silent Hill 2. Then I was like, oh, brilliant, I'll give this a try. And that was scary. I was the perfect age for that game, because I think I was, I'm going to say, maybe 14, because it was around 2000-ish that came out. It was quite early on in the PlayStation 2. And it looked amazing. Like, the graphics were fantastic. Like, the CG at the time was really, really good. The voice acting was good. But it was truly unnerving. Like, Resident Evil scared me always in a bit of a boom kind of way, like something would jump and you're like, oh shit, I need to shoot that dog. Whereas in this, the enemies, which now I'm older, you play it and you go, actually, I don't need to kill most of these, they're not going to do anything to me. But they disturbed me. So to your point, yeah, they are more like mystical because there's no rhyme or reason for them to be there. But it was very mental and emotional. Like a lot of it, like, I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's a lot in Silent Hill where I think it's meant to be to interpretation, but Silent Hill 2 in particular, the team that worked on that really did state that everything in the game was kind of designed around a choice for it to be designed that way. So a lot of the enemies that, for example, I mean, I'm not going too much into it, the main guy you're playing as gets a letter from his wife to say, oh, come meet me in Silent Hill. But his wife's been dead for a few years. And he's like, how have I got this letter? What is going on? But he goes there anyway. And the things and stuff he sees there are very sexualized things. Not like like Dead or Alive sexualized. More like the enemies are just two pairs of legs, for example. And they designed enemies like that because they're saying that, oh, we're meant for that choice. I'm not going to go into too much the why because obviously it's spoilers and stuff like that. But Resident Evil, on the other hand, yeah, the zombies made sense and they were good, they were scary. When they came back as the redheads and they were really fast, like, oh my god, that's terrifying. But then Resident Evil 2, it seemed even better. Like, oh, this is brilliant. Then there's a giant alligator and stuff, and I lose the level between the realism then. Because I'm like,
yeah, they did sort of push it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the point where I started, like, with especially Resident Evil 1, the point where I was a bit, okay, was the mutated shark and the giant anaconda, like, snake. I was like, okay, giant snake, that's fine.
And the plant?
That's on the plant. The plant, I forgot about the plant. That's realistic.
Yeah, exactly. See what I mean? But they're both.
I think at that point I'd got invested into it so much I was just like, I'll keep going. But I've got to. To be honest, I'm probably doing Silent Hill a massive disservice. It's obviously clearly an extremely popular franchise. It's just one that I could not myself personally get into. I should actually maybe go back now. And now I'm a little bit more mature, and I respect games a lot more these days. And I understand the amount of effort that goes into them as well. Back then, you're just like, oh, I don't like it, and just throw it in the...
Yeah.
You know, you play it only for a few minutes. Not like Deadly Premonition, where I will go back to and play it a bit more.
Of course.
It's. I guess back then you sort of just... If a game doesn't capture you within the first 10 minutes... I think maybe my age, I was just like, oh no, I'm done. You know, like, but now I think I'm willing to give games a lot more time and a lot more effort. You know, just put a bit more investment in them a lot more. And maybe I should go back to Silent Hill and just go back to the first one even, and just sort of see what the experience is like, and almost with fresh eyes, because I do remember certain things of it. Because I think I played like the demo of it, and I remember finding a body like tied to... Every time I talk to you about horror games, it's always like bodies tied to something. But there's a body tied to a fence, and it's been like gutted. Again, very similar. Yeah. And then something happens. Does something get you or something? Yeah, pass it out. And that's about it. That's where the demo finishes. And that was about it. And I was like, that was okay. But again, that's all I experienced.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil, for example, was actually my first PlayStation 1 game I ever got.
Ah, right.
I was only 8 years old, and early adopter. And my brother bought me a PlayStation for Christmas, and he went, "Oh, Roger, I've got you this game," ignoring the 18 rating on it. "I've got you this game. It's done really well. You'll like it." I was like, "Oh, cool, thanks, John. I'll try it out." Plug it in, and literally we were both playing it, and within about 3 or 4 minutes, we're both screaming because the zombies, you know, the way it turned, and it's like, ah. He didn't realise it had zombies in it. He didn't read the back of the disc. I didn't even consider it would be a horror game. I thought it might have been an action game, and like I was like pooing myself, and literally turned off the PlayStation. Had nightmares for about a month. And never actually went back to it until I was 13.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to play this game. Still had it on PlayStation 1. I'm going to play this game. And I sat down and I played it from start to finish. And I did it about 3 times.
Wow,
and
nice.
I absolutely loved it. And I was actually determined to see how quick I could complete the game by the end of it. I got really invested in the story. Then played Resident Evil 2. And literally absolutely fell in love with that game beyond belief. I class it as one of my top 5 games of all time. Absolutely amazing. Then played Resident Evil 3. It was okay, not too bad. Very much like 2, but I like the idea of the nemesis chasing you and stuff like that. Added that extra element of horror. It didn't capture me as much as Resident Evil 2, I have to admit. Maybe it was because I already played Resident Evil 2 and had those experiences, and that was a sudden shock of what I would say the jump from Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2. And then there was a lot of in-between games and things like that, and you had, obviously then the remake came out, and then Resident Evil 4 came along. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed Resident Evil 4, and a lot of people will go on about it saying it's one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. It didn't capture me the same way as 1 or 2 did.
No.
Because it was going to, again, we started to see that progression of it just diverting off, to say, down this route of a little bit more action. Like the over-the-shoulder camera, like that. But it just didn't capture me the same way as those initial games, maybe because I was getting a bit older as well, and I think some of your early game sort of experiences can be something which can... I think it can almost like affect you a little bit in the sense of that you sort of remember those games a lot more. Like I said, Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, for example, on PlayStation 1, was one of the early games that I remember completing alongside Resident Evil. And I believe those 2 games were a massive influence on what I enjoyed later down the road. And they stuck with me. And I just think, like, maybe when it got to Resident Evil 4, I'd almost grown up a little bit, and then was looking for a different sort of genre. And that just didn't appeal for me for Resident Evil 4. And then 5 came along, and then 6, and as we know how well that went. But I think the progression of horror games seems to have, like you said, it went into fashion, and then it seems to have dipped off due to publishers wanting something different. And it does seem to be they are now making a comeback.
Yeah.
And in a very, very good way. And I think that, like you said before, it's very much down to the indie games and the developers making that risk.
I mean, you can liken it a lot to, I mean, it's not so much indie, but it's very close to Demon's Souls for the PS3 coming out. And that was a very niche title, you know, just for one console, just one small team that no one had really heard of From Software at the time. Out comes Dark Souls, starts getting a bit big more now, more people are getting into this. Oh, that looks pretty good. Dark Souls 2 comes out, people are going to a midnight release for it, it's on every console and stuff. You know, they're now infamous for that, and we've got games coming out like Bound by Flame, I think, came out, and there's two other ones that are very, very similar, but it's almost created this new style.
There's another one coming out, actually, very soon.
Yeah,
and I can't think of the name of it.
No,
it was on
reading
PSN
about it earlier.
Today, I was looking at it on the PlayStation Network, and it's like an image of a guy's face.
It is, yeah, like the gruff
very
face.
Barbarian sort of look to him. Oh, God, I can't think what it is. But yes, the screenshots look very, very similar to Dark Souls and things like that.
And that's it. I mean, they took the chance originally, and they worked on it. They kept going with it. I mean, the guy that originally worked on Demons and Dark Souls wasn't involved anymore for Dark Souls 2. And I think it just shows now that it's a name people know when you talk to, like, you know, general like console owners. They'll say, oh, yeah, I know Dark Souls 2. Not for me or whatever. Or like, oh, I don't really like Skyrim, so I won't play Dark Souls. Like, they're aware of what it's like, but it's still different enough that you've got people that like Skyrim and games like that, and you've got people that like Dark Souls and games like that. And that's now made it's like subgenre of people like hard games now that they didn't like before. They like this kind of action game, which is very much Dungeons and Dragons, but to the next level, less role playing like BioWare style, you know, like there's turn-based combat and stuff, much more, you know, blocking attacks, sword attacks. The Witcher, for example, came out, and The Witcher 2 and soon to be The Witcher 3 have become very more like actiony, based on the first one's a lot more based on the RPG elements, which you can still do a lot in 2 and you should be able to do in 3, but they focus a lot more on this open world where you're fighting creatures and things, and you know, people seem to get into this now. I mean, like, it sounds daft, but it's almost like the Lord of the Rings movies going to the cinema made people think, oh, we can make movies from books and people will buy them now. Marvel went,
we can do it well and do it right.
Yes, that's it. And it's just the fact that I think someone starts it, everyone follows the bandwagon. So it's always good for us. But the worry I have now is that it's just going to end up kind of flooding the market. I mean, World War II shooters during the PS2 era, for example.
I miss
you couldn't
World
move.
War II shooters. I enjoyed Medal of Honor and everything like that. And then obviously we've got the Modern Warfare, and that then obviously happened, and the explosion, Battlefield.
Yep.
And then Titanfall came out. Let's do Call of Duty Future Warfare. And you see that progression moving forward, where I think we're going to get a lot more futuristic shooters, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you use like Battlefield as a comparison as well, because they did, back alongside the World War II ones, they started with Battlefield 1942. And that was their first one. And then they did Battlefield 2142, which was the sci-fi one. So they just missed the kind of modern one in between.
They just jumped and thought, we'll get ahead. We'll move on first. And we're like, better reel it back. Reel it back a lot.
yeah, exactly.
But no, you got to, I guess, like you said, like, with anything that becomes popular, it does just flood and saturate the market in the end. I just hope that they won't learn from the mistakes. It'll go down the same route as before. It'll become one thing or another. It'll go down a different genre route. Hopefully it won't go down the action again, because it clearly doesn't work in every case, and it doesn't work in every franchise. No. Works for, obviously, we have an action and adventure genre. That's what it's there for. There's no point bringing horror and putting it into that, because horror is its own genre. You can have action horror, but you can't then sort of associate it with its previous franchise, which was heavily based upon survival horror. Because you're then confusing your audience a little bit. But yeah, I guess we'll probably go on hours about it. But actually, to finish off the show, Matt, if you had to name 3 horror games for someone to play, what would you suggest?
When we say horror, what
something
horror
that
are we
you think
talking?
that could... Oh, yeah, because then we talk about Dark Souls. something that I would say, if we're bringing to this Halloween tomorrow, something that actually you think would genuinely scare some people.
Okay, that's a good shout then, because I see that as different. Because to me, Resident Evil and Silent Hill don't really scare people. You might get a few jumps. Or...
Oh, you want to see? I probably will still get scared.
I mean, probably. I bet these will be on the Steam sale actually, so I'll check possibly later on. But Amnesia: The Dark Descent, that should be quite cheap. That's PC only. I probably would recommend Alien. I think that is quite scary early on. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to do 4 because this next one isn't really a game.
Okay, no worries.
It's a PC only one again. You don't pay for it; it's free. Indie game called SCP, and there are some numbers after that. I'll send you a link to it later to put in the show notes to find.
Say that again. Sorry, what was the name? SCP.
SCP, just the initials. And I'll talk a little bit on it for a minute because I can't do it justice now. SCP was a project that some mini developers worked on where it's randomly generated horror in this kind of, I think it's some kind of like, might be an asylum, might be a test lab or something, and it's truly terrifying. Like, the game ends when something kills you in it, but we're not talking kills like you have a health meter or anything like that. First person game, you're wandering around, random things will happen on certain floors. Other playthroughs it won't. So literally you're playing the game to be scared. Similar-ish to the Slender idea, but without notes, without a goal. You're playing it to see how long you go until something happens. And there's things they've created in there, and I think they based them on real like horror stories and stuff. But we're talking like you go into one room, and if it's the right time for it to happen, there's something in that room that if you look at it, it will kill you. Like if you look at it directly, when you try and turn away, it doesn't move. So when you like turn away and then try and look back, it will have gone somewhere else, and it's like always constantly like moving around. But there's like noise, there's like things flickering on the screen. It's very hard to word. If you can get some footage to kind of put in this,
I'll have a little hunt actually. Well, actually, explain. I'll probably have already faded it in very professionally over the top, and I'll be like, still don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's awesome.
SCP,
it's so scary. SCP, yeah, and it is just bab-inducing because you'll ruin your chair because it's not a game; it is just like a horror simulator. But for the third one, I can't think off the top of my head because a lot of horror games I play, I don't find that scary. Like I would want to recommend a Silent Hill, but it depends on your age and your like kind of sensitization to it. Like to me, Silent Hill 2 is generally quite scary, but when you're young and when you play it at midnight with the lights off, that is a scary game. But maybe not so much now. So come back to me on my third one. I might have a route through, see what I can think of while you're going on.
I got to it for myself. I probably would put Alien up there. I know I think it's a new game, so anything like that, but it's very atmospheric, pulls you in so well, and just due down to sound alone, it's so scary. I like, again, with Outlast as well, that I think what they've done with that game, which again, like I said before, I think heavily influenced Alien Isolation, started something that again was so scary, but it rejuvenated the whole genre of horror. I personally think it brought me back to playing horror. So I've got to put that in top 3. Again, I guess that's sort of cheating a little because it's relatively new, I guess, but I think it's fantastic. Again, I haven't completed it all the way to the end, and I have heard a few people that it said that the end is a little bit meh, but I still think it's one of those games that I think you've got to at least experience Outlast. And it was actually free on the PlayStation Plus not long ago, and for that to be free, it's just a third one, I got to admit, I'm getting a little bit stuck on this. I think for pure classic, and again, like you said, very much like Silent Hill, I think I'm going to go with Resident Evil 2. It's not really scary now, but at the time, it was so groundbreaking, and just the story alone was engaging and exciting, yet the whole of the city of Raccoon City that it's set in, everybody's dead. and they're walking around, and it was that element. And again, you wouldn't see hordes upon hordes of zombies, but then the game would fill in. Your mind would fill in that gap. That the idea is that in these buildings you're walking along, there is zombies in there, or you would hear noises in the distance. You would hear over the cityscape a moaning of a zombie from like through the streets. Even though you can't go down there, you know they're there. And and I think that's the element of that you're just scaring yourself. And it just being purely, I would class it almost a masterpiece, Resident Evil 2, being that good. It is unbelievable. Yeah. But yeah, now that probably would be my top 3 horror games. And as a special note, if you don't want to spend any money on a game, get Slender, because I believe that's free to download from the developer's website. I'll try and put a link in the description below, actually. Play Slender. Because, again, you've probably seen hundreds of videos of it on YouTube, but that game absolutely masters the quality of sound within a game. Even though it visually doesn't look that impressive, it nails sound perfectly. And, yeah, that's basically just it. It'll shock you by traditional methods of, if you see Slender, it'll do the fing like moment, and you're like, oh, look at the ground. Look at the ground, walk it, and it just does that. And again, watch Nights of Horror episode 1. Unfortunately, the video quality back then of when I did the recording wasn't amazing. But if you go back and just see again me screaming a lot, and just saying not looking at you, not looking at you, so I'm trying to find these papers on walls and just trying to nope, don't want to know, which is what I probably said about 1,000 times during that video. But no, can you think of another one?
Yeah, the one I'd forgotten about, because it's not something people can really get easily. It's a PS2 game. Depending on where you're from, different name for it. You're either going to know it as Project Zero, I think that's the English name, or Fatal Frame, which is a Japanese horror game based on, depending on which one you play, I think 2 is the best one, if I remember, that's the 2 sisters. You play as a young Japanese girl who's in some kind of haunted area. I don't remember the story too well now because it's been a long time since I played this, except to import an easy version to play. And all you get in the game is a camera, known as a spirit camera, and you can hear things around you. There's stuff like happening around you that can hurt you and stuff. But the only way you can see them is to take photos of these ghosts, and they're quite creepy. So they're invisible in like the room and things like that. But you can lift the camera up, you'll take photos, and that's how you damage them. You have to take photos of this camera.
Oh, yeah, no, I won't be good at that. I won't be good
again,
at that.
If you can get some footage on that, it's good. Because I honestly think the Japanese know how to do horror quite well. Because it's
I still can't watch The Ring.
Oh, really?
The Ring. Yeah.
The original one or the
original one. It creeps the hell out of me. Just no, I can't do it. I can't even. I'm not very good with horror films either. This is how bad I am. I like zombies. Zombies are entertaining.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into the found footage, such as like your Blair Witch, paranormal activities, can't go near them. I watched the Blair Witch one night, and I watched it. I probably made the fatal mistake. I watched it on my own late at night, pretty much the lights off, and watched it. I couldn't settle that night. I just couldn't. And actually, there's something we've missed out. Which is actually free to play at this present moment on PlayStation 4, and that's P.T.
Of course.
The demo for the new Silent Hill, actually, which I totally forgot all about. That is again unbelievable. If you've got a PlayStation 4, go down to PSN right now, go down to demos, and just download that and try it, because I can guarantee you will not sleep for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's quite a little bit gross as well. Just a bit.
Yeah, there's quite a few shocking things in there, really. But also, once you've played it a few times and you've gone as far as you can, have a look online to see if you can find. Some people have cracked the code now to actually get the ending to it.
Really? Because I've only played a few minutes of it, and I had to turn it off. It got a bit too much for me. But I did hear that there was a code behind it. Then is there like a hidden message?
Yeah, but what you have to do in the game, I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone because it's quite short anyway, is to get through the game, so the area you're stuck in, you've got to listen for laughter. There's freaky laughs to hear, and when you've heard them, you've triggered all the events. You can leave. That's the key thing for it. But they only happen after certain events have transpired, and obviously, if you linger too long, it takes you back to like the beginning. But you can still just carry on where you are. But someone like tested this theory for hours, and he proved it. He got it right. He got it to a T. Because we're talking counting footsteps and looking at certain things. And I was like,
my God.
That's very specific. But if you get it right at the very end of the playable teaser, you get the hidden trailer for the Silent Hills. That's what you unlock through it. So
I know what I've got planned and determined. That'll be probably one of the Silent Hill games that I probably would like to have a little go at for the future releases. I will go back and from this episode, I've learned I will go back and play the first Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1, and I will record that. What was the other one I need to record?
SCP. You're going to play that.
SCP and Deadly Premonition.
Yes, and if you can get your hands on some, I recommend. I've got a quick key list that I'd made up for you before, which is we've got Project Zero for the PS2, Clock Tower. There's the original one on the Super Nintendo, which you can get translated ROM of if you need a copy of the game you own. There's Clock Tower games for the PS2. There's System Shock 2 for the PC, which is very good. Alan Wake for PC and the previous gen consoles. We've got the Fear series. They're quite good. I quite enjoyed Fear. Penumbra, which is like Amnesia, Dark Descent, Amnesia, Machine for Pigs. We've got Condemned 1 and 2. That was, again, PC and previous gen console. We've got the Dead Space 1, 2, and 3. The Resident Evil series, the Silent Hill series, Deadly Premonition. An old one, it's quite good. It's called Obscure for PS2 and Xbox. That's quite a good one as well.
I've never heard of that one, I have to admit.
One really good one I forgot about, which is quite scary, but it's also stupid when you get to the end of it. But I've got this for PSN, so if you do want to play and record this, I'd quite like to see you try this one. Siren, Blood Curse.
Yeah, I was gonna actually buy that a few years ago when it came out. It was in a episodic release.
It was episodic, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was going to pick that up, but I never got around to it. I think I went through a bit of a period. I just didn't know what to play at the time, and you saw like you're just trolling through the PSN. You're like, and you saw it on the fence. I was like, no, I'll think about it, and I just never went eventually to actually purchase it.
See, because I got that one. It was quite good, very Japanese. I think it's mainly subbed, or the dub in places is because the characters are from different countries. It lets itself down with the story later on, so play it for the horror, maybe don't finish it.
Not for the story.
No. And the last one, which is one of my favourites actually, but I don't find it scary, but it's something that a lot of people took forward afterwards, is Eternal Darkness for the GameCube.
That is another one which it shows actually doing these shows is how much I don't play video games as much as I think I do, and I miss so many franchises. But yeah, I didn't play Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, that had a really good idea going for it, which was like your sanity meter, because it was called Sanity's Requiem. And in the boss fight, this is spoilers for Metal Gear Solid 1, so don't complain. It's
okay.
Metal Gear Solid 1.
If you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 1 by now,
yeah, why are you here?
Yeah, why are you watching this show? Seriously, just go pause, go play Metal Gear Solid. We will forgive you. Like, seriously, just go play it. Carry on, sir. Carry on.
In the boss fight with Psycho Mantis, it breaks the fourth wall in a few different ways, where he reads your mind, your memory card, tells you what games you've played. He makes the controller move across the floor.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah, I do remember that. And I remember at the time just being like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
And then the best one, which is what Sanity's Requiem does, is he changes your TV channel, and the only way to get it back is to change your pad from the Player 1 controller to the Player 2 controller, where you can then attack him, because he can't read your thoughts anymore. Sanity's Requiem has fake problems in the game, so it'll glitch on purpose. So at some point you'll be walking through like a creepy corridor or something like this, think like Resident Evil style, you're in a mansion going down somewhere, and all of a sudden the screen will go off and it'll say tracking, scanning, something like that, and you'll think, oh, my TV's gone funny. It'll play a weird noise and it'll bang back up, and you're like, oh, I'm back in the game now. A second later, you walk into a room and your character's head will disappear. So the whole time you're in that room, they've got no head. Like when a game glitches and you're like, oh, what a weird glitch, and then it'll pop back in. but it'll do things like reverse your controls, do these weird things, and it will make you like think you're going insane with the glitches. Like, what is a glitch? What is real? What's going on?
Playing with your own sort of mind of how everything. That is actually very clever.
Yeah, and I like that a lot.
That's very clever. I got to. There's so many games actually that I've personally missed that I've come to realize even more now. That especially within the horror genre, there's a lot out there that you can experience, and very sort of different versions of the genre. And basically, if you even try to play any of those that Mark's just played, you're probably not going to have a clean share tomorrow night. So I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Actually, thank you so much for joining me, Mark. And actually, like I said, I feel like I've done a lot of these old franchises a bit of an injustice and not given the time. My microphone is slowly slipping away again. Bear with me. New stand. It's got to tighten this bugger up. So I've got to admit, I think it's a case of that. I've got to go back and play a lot of these, and I think definitely going to give the Silent Hill a rerun. Definitely going to give that a rerun. Dig out the PlayStation 2 once again. Keep digging it out for the retro rewinds, but I was going to say something else, but it doesn't matter. So many games that I want to play on the PlayStation 2 now, like such as the Lord of the Rings games with Shadow of Mordor. Maybe we really want to go back and play some of those. But no, thank you very much. And I hope everyone has a fantastic Halloween. Me and you, Mark, we're going to be having a few bevies on Saturday.
Correct. And
bevies for the Americans, that's drink. And I'll probably feel a little rough again, but with a proper hangover on Sunday. Don't forget, guys, you can follow us on Twitter, which is @AlwayzGamesTV. You can follow me, which is no, that's totally said that wrong. Words are just falling out of my mouth now. You can follow me personally @TheGeekKeeper. And Mark, how can we stalk you on the old Twitterverse?
If you want to bother me about any horror games and stuff, I'm @TremendousMark.
And on that, thank you very much. And we'll see you, hopefully. We'll have to work out, Matt, what we're going to do the next show, when we're going to chatting about the news, but maybe either a week, 2 weeks, something like that. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'll see ya.
Bye.